Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross and I was always told I had a voice radio, so today I'm bringing you another round from the Xeon City Gym City Championship from down in Cornwall in the UK. This is an expanded format tournament, not like I said on the first video, and it is from black and white all the way through to breakthrough. It's 50 minutes, best of 3, so sit back, grab yourself a nice cold beverage, and enjoy a nice game from the Truro City Championship. Best of 3, 50 minutes, expanded, black and white to breakthrough. And of course, I should say a massive thank you to all who helped to run that tournament, the Sidden family. Lovely, lovely people, lovely, lovely tournament, and they made it very, very easy for me to record indeed. Okay, so we have got Ryan, I believe, on the right, and we have got Max on the left. Max is going to be playing Blastoise. We saw him in an earlier round, and on the right, we've got Ryan Sinclair, and he is going to be playing Tyrantrum Bronzong, which is an interesting deck that is pretty viable, and that I wanted to have kind of up on the stream so I could show you guys a deck which I'm not sure if I've ever showed Tyrantrum on the stream before, to be honest, ladies and gentlemen. So I suppose this is our opportunity to do so. Now, starting Hooper, not what you want to do. Now, now there's an interesting one. He's immediately used an Ultra Ball to grab a Jirachi, used Jirachi's ability to grab a supporter, in this case, Getsis, and Getsis is going to make Max show his hand, shuffle all the trainers in his hand back into his deck, and it is going to allow Ryan to draw one card for every trainer shuffled back in by Max. Now, already it looks like Ryan's had to dump 2 VS Seekers. Now, we know that that is possibly the best card in the game. It allows you to take any supporter from your discard pile and reuse it. It is immensely powerful. Unless you're playing a straight trainer lock deck, or item lock it should be nowadays, every deck at the moment, ladies and gentlemen, is playing 4 VS Seeker. And there's a darn good reason for it. It's an amazing card. So, and don't get me wrong, the reality is here that Ryan has probably dumped 2 VS Seeker because sometimes that's the hand you get. Sometimes you have to Juniper 2 double colorless in a deck that relies on it. So we see a Floatstone going on the Hooper, and we see the Getsis. How useful is this going to be? Oh my goodness. Nothing. Although Max does not have a great hand. Now, I am going to be commentating this as if you've watched the previous game with Max with his Blastoise deck. So if you haven't, I suggest you go back and watch that from a couple of rounds ago. Because like I say, I'm going to be assuming that you know that. Now, Max is going to be trying to get that Archie's ace in the hole. It's going to basically, he wants to get to a position where the Archie's is the final card in his hand, and he's got a Blastoise in the discard pile. Blastoise goes on his bench, and he draws until he's got 5 cards in his hand. Now, we saw he actually top-decked a Trainer's Mail there, which, of course, would have been an item he would have had to shuffle back in, but he didn't have it in his hand, and he's used that to get a superior energy retrieval. Now, it's not ideal, but there are some situations where it can really help you to thin your hand out a little bit to, mean that you've got less cards in your hand so that you can go about and empty your hand to use the Archies. Now, the reason why Ryan didn't want to start... Oh, we see a Sycamore coming down here. Oh, so he used the Jirachi there to try and avoid playing a Sycamore. He got nothing from the Getsis. He then had to play a Sycamore, getting rid of another Sycamore in the process. So both players here, not great opening hands. Now, he gets a double Dragon Energy on the Tyrantrum, and that's a pretty good start. He gets a Bronzor down, and that is a pretty good start. Now, what we see here is a situation where, Ryan started with the Hooper, and that's not good. Hooper you play for his ability. You play it so you can put it down, use the ability to go for 3 EXs, and you'd go for a couple of Tyrantrums and maybe something like a Shaman to draw more cards. Well, you can't do that when you start Hooper. You end up with a rubbish card in the active and an annoying situation where you cannot use the Hooper to use his ability. So that's not good. Now, we do see a Battle Compressor coming down here from Ryan. He's going to want to get rid of a couple of Metal Energy. Now, I suppose at this stage I should tell you what Tyrantrum does, for those who don't already know. he's got an ability saying that effects on the attacks aren't affected by any effects on your opponent's active Pokemon. That's going to be irrelevant in this game. Ryan also drops a Lysandre there so he can reuse it with VS Seeker, but remember, he's already dropped 2 of his 4 VS Seekers into the discard pile. But he's still got 2 left, so, he's still slightly improving his odds of hitting a Lysander when he needs to. Now, Tyrantrum, for 2 metal, a colourless, and a fighting, can do 190 damage, and you discard free energy. So, next turn, let's say Ryan gets a Bronzong. He's going to be able to use the Bronzong to... Oh, okay. Now, he needs a fighting energy, but he's got the Double Dragon on the Bronzong, which of course is 2 of any type of energy, including fighting. So if Ryan can get a Bronzong here, he can evolve the Bronzor into Bronzong, use the ability to attach a metal energy from the discard to one of his benched Pokemon, and then he can use Tyrantrum EX to do 190 damage and KO the active Keldeo. And that's going to be his plan. And then next turn, he will want to be using Bronzong again with another Double Dragon. Remember, you do need the fighting, because you need Double Dragon. And I believe there's 1 basic fighting that he plays as well. Now, you saw there that Max just attached an energy to Keldeo and passed. So he's not having a good game. And you saw that Ryan chose to use his 3rd VS Seeker to grab to grab a Lysander rather than playing the N. And the reason is very simple. You do not want to play an N when your opponent is drawing dead. Yes, there is every possibility that next turn Max is going to draw the best card ever and he's going to be able to, draw out of it. But you want to wait for your opponent to do that. What you don't want to do is play an N, allow them to shuffle their hand, and at this stage he's got 6 prizes left, so he draws 6 cards from the N. And then get into a situation where he draws a good hand and can get going. Here, Ryan is going to get the KO with the Tyrantrum on the Keldeo, and that's going to be awesome. Now, you see he gets another Bronzor down there, and that means that assuming he can get another Bronzong next turn, then he is... now we do see Superior Energy Retrieval coming down here. Getting rid of a Blastoise... although he's had to pick up some energy, so it hasn't actually done him a huge amount of good. And remember, Mewtwo does 20 damage times the amount of energy attached to both the active. If Tyrantrum didn't discard... we can see, Max, we can see. If Tyrantrum didn't discard energy in order to attack, we'd actually be in a weird situation here, where Mewtwo would be able to do quite a lot of damage to Tyrantrum. But actually, discarding down to 1 energy, although it means you have to reattach the following turn, it gives you a really big advantage against decks like Mewtwo and indeed like Yveltal, who really prey on Pokemon that have a lot of energy attached to them. Now, Ryan has currently got 3 energy attached to the Tyrantrum, but he needs a 4th, and he can't attach again this turn. So he can only get another energy by Bronzong, but remember, Bronzong can only attach energy to Pokemon on the bench. Oh, there is a... that is game. Beautiful play from Ryan there. He uses a switch to put the Hooper into the active with the Float Stone, at which point he can use the Bronzong to attach a metal energy to the now bench Tyrantrum, who then has 4 energy on there, including a fighting by virtue of the Double Dragon, and then he can free retreat the Hooper using the Float Stone, and use Dragon Impact for 190 and the win. So, and that's what these decks try and do, and both these decks are very similar in that they're both pile energy on and smash. And in that game, Max failed to set up entirely, and Ryan got Tyrantrum out and working. And you see there that Ryan was able to use Dragon Impact on that Tyrantrum 2 turns in a row to do 190 damage and get the big KOs. And especially if you can get 2 Bronzongs out, then every turn you can use both the Bronzong's abilities to attach 2 Metal Energy. Then you attach a Double Dragon and boom, off you go, you're getting the KO. Now, you are going to be discarding the Double Dragon every turn, but when you're one-hit KOing EXs, you only need 3, so as long as you play the Double Dragon energy carefully and don't needlessly discard them, you'll be okay. Max, for his point, is going to want to try and use Archies to get his Blastoise out. He is going to want to pile energy onto a Keldeo EX. He does 50 damage plus 20 for each water energy attached for a minimum of 3 energy. And then he is just going to want to get one-hit KOs on these EX Pokemon. Now, you see a Giratina coming down there from Ryan as his starter Pokemon. Giratina stops your opponent playing Stadiums, Tools, or Special Energy. And we see Max. It's a pretty brutal Sycamore, especially getting rid of those 2 superior energy retrieval, but it's better than what he had at the beginning of last game, although no turn 1 Blastoise again. Can't play Archies after a supporter. You cannot play supporter 2 in 1 turn. Can you, Jake? Comment if you're listening to this, Jake, just so you know I love you. And that I know you love me in return. And the Giratina, he only does 100 damage, but he stops your opponent. And the biggest thing it stops really is special energy. Stops tools, stops stadiums, but it's a special energy that's big. That's not very good against Blastoise. Blastoise doesn't play any special energy. Caldeo's going for one-hit KOs, and Giratina does 100 damage. Giratina is terrible in this matchup, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, Ryan does not have a lot. There is a possibility here. If Max has got the right cards in his hand, he can win right here. If he can empty out his hand, now he's going to need a lot. He's going to need a Blastoise, and he's going to need... Well, he's going to need to do effectively 190, which means he's doing 50 standard, which means he needs to do an extra 140. So it's going to take 7 energy or 6 and a muscle band. Can he play his hand down to nothing? I'm pretty sure I saw a Jirachi in his hand. So if he can play his hand down until it's just 1 Jirachi in his hand, he can. We know he's got the Blastoise in the discard pile, so he'll be able to play his hand down to just a Jirachi, use Jirachi's Stardust Song. Oh, and he's got it, because he can Ultra Ball there. He doesn't want to get rid of the Shaman, but needs must. He can play an Ultra Ball there, presumably to get a Keldeo. He can then bench the Keldeo, at which point the only thing in his hand is a Jirachi. He can play the Jirachi and use the ability, which I want to call Stardust Song, but I often get it wrong, to search out the Archie's Ace in the hole. Beautiful. And now he can get that Blastoise out. Now, one mistake the players do sometimes make, and I think we saw Max make this mistake in a previous game, they'll sometimes use Battle Compressor to get both the Archie's Ace in the hole in the discard pile. That's why you don't. You want 1 in the discard so you can try and recover it with the S-Seeker, and you want 1 in the deck so you can grab it with Jirachi. The unknown goes away with Farewell Letter to draw an extra card, and now it's a case of can he have... Now, he's going to need 7 energy or 6 and a muscle band. There's 4. Now, if he doesn't have the 7 energy, you only want to attach 3. He says as he puts 4. Now, 4's going to do 130, which is not needed. You want to put 3 energy on to get 110. What you don't want to happen here, what the worst case scenario is if Ryan were to turn around and one-hit KO that Keldeo this turn, then there's nothing that Max would be able to do. However, we've seen Ryan's deck. We know Ryan's deck cannot KO a Keldeo. So, and that is it. That's game 2 straight away. Ryan has nothing. He sees he can't win. The good news is we are going to get a best of 3 where 3 games are actually played because we are already 2 games done. So to go back to my previous point, generally, if you're not getting a one-hit KO with the Keldeo, you want to put 3 energy on. 110 will 2-hit KO anything except the bigger Mega EXs, and even then you can just put a 4th energy on the... So you do 110 1 damage, 1 turn, and 130 the next to get the KO. What you don't generally want to do is pile too much energy on the Keldeo, because doing that essentially opens you up to a risk of having your Keldeo knocked out with all the energy. It's sometimes better to keep that energy in hand, or ideally, have a second Keldeo out and start popping a whole bunch of energy onto him, ready to go in future turns. However... And I do this sometimes, and I make no apologies. I think it kind of makes the videos interesting. It enables me to kind of help you guys out a little bit more, give a few more tips. That is a little bit pedantic because Max clearly had the game well in control. But we need to think about little plays like this because there are some games where that 1 energy could be that, the Keldeo goes down and that 1 energy is the difference between getting a KO the following turn or not getting it because you're 1 energy short because you put too much on the Caldeo in the previous turn. Oh, and Ryan is not having good luck with starters here. He had Hooper turn 1, then Giratina, then Jirachi. Although, to be fair, Ryan doesn't have many good starters in his deck at all. You never want to start Jirachi or Shaman. Giratina's useless pretty much against Blastoise. Oh, and another turn 1 gets this. Oh, and that's beautiful. That's really good. He was going to draw into an Archie's Ace in the hole. You're not really supposed to look at your deck in that situation, but it makes no difference. He's shuffling it anyway. Now, what was so beautiful about that is that Max had a Battle Compressor and he had a Trainer's Mail. Now, the Trainer's Mail might have got him something to work with, but also, let's say now, argument's sake, let's say Max top decks a VS Seeker. Well, if you've got a Battle Compressor and a VS Seeker, you can Battle Compress, discard from your deck, whichever supporter card you want, and grab it straight back with VS Seeker and use it. But you can't do that if you're in a position where you don't have any supporters in a discard pile, and that's what it seems to be. So, yeah, that's pretty good. Going back to Ryan's starter Pokemon, Bronzor you don't want to start with, you want him on your bench. The only Pokemon with whom you ever really want to attack, at least in this matchup, is Tyrantrum. But he takes 4 energy and you want to be using, you want to be using Bronzong to get him up and running, which means you need him on the bench. So actually, as much as I say Ryan keeps starting with poor Pokemon, Ryan's is one of those decks where there is no good starter. Max's deck is easy. You want to start Caldeo, or maybe Mewtwo, or maybe Articuno. And to be honest, whatever you start with, you're going to attack with Caldeo, and his rushing ability allows you to put him in the active whenever you like anyway. So there's almost no such thing as a bad starter for Max. Although obviously if Max were to start Jirachi or Shaman, he would then be able to rush in and get it out of the active, but he would lose the chance to get it out of the deck and use the ability. So we saw a Trainer's Mail coming down from Ryan there, from which he got a Battle Compressor. A lot of Battle Compressing going on in this game. And he played the Battle Compressor, discarding 2 Metal Energy, as we would expect, and a Lysander, just like he did in the previous game. Ryan here showing a penchant, and arguably correctly so, for getting rid of a Lysander, so that he's always got it in his deck. And like I've said on previous videos, let's say you've got 2 Lysander in your deck, that means you have 2 cards that can get you a Lysander. Free if you play Computer Search. If you put a Lysander in the discard pile, well, you're playing 4 VS Seeker. So, and we see another Battle Compressor coming down here from Ryan. So now, as soon as you've got a Lysander in the discard pile, instead of having 2 cards that are essentially Lysander, there are now 5. Because you can draw into your second Lysander, or you can draw into your 4 VS Seeker. Also, let's say you're playing 2 Lysander, as most people do, and for argument's sake, 1 might be prized. Well, if you've only got 1 copy left in your deck, it's going to be far easier to draw into one of your VS Seeker than it is to draw into that 1 Lysander. So we see Ryan, he dumps an Enhanced Hammer, as previously mentioned. Blastoise, not reliant on special energy. And that's the promo Jirachi, which is another card which is in there for special energy hate. It's got the attack which allows you to discard a special energy attached to your opponent's active while doing 10 damage for 1 colorless energy. And then it allows you to... and then Jirachi has immunity from attacks the following turn. And actually, if getting rid of the Jirachi and the Enhanced Hammer wasn't enough, Ryan is also getting rid of Xerosic, a supporter card that allows you to get rid of special energy. Although I should add, it also allows you to get rid of Pokemon tools. And, Floatstone and Muscle Band can be important in some situations for the Blastoise player. Now, this is not ideal from Ryan here. He does not want to be attacking with Giratina. Giratina does 100 damage, and that is not enough. This matchup is a matchup of one-hit KOs. Oh, Articuno puts Jirachi to sleep, and Jirachi just wakes straight back up again. So Max is not having a good time of it. He had a really nice start Well, actually not amazing, but a pretty good start game 2. But games 1 and 3, he had a better start. I should add that, well, with one exception, in the games against me, Max had a lot, because I played Max earlier in this time. I played Ryan as well, actually. In fact, and this isn't a spoiler because it's round 5, I took both these boys down in Swiss. And I'm a little bit proud of myself. I got incredibly lucky against Max. But he drew much better in the games against me. Not to be sad, but it does make me a little bit sad. So Ryan finally gets a Tyrantrum down. Now, in a situation where Max doesn't draw anything, Giratina's 2-hit KOing everything in his deck, so it's not the end of the world. Even if he can KO an Articuno with Giratina, what you don't want to do is take one prize off an Articuno and leave an EX in the active to take 2 prizes off. Now, Articuno does have the Delta Plus ability, Ancient Trait, which allows you to take an extra prize with a KO. Now, I think it does 20 plus 40 for each coin flip, for each heads off 3 coin flips. Now, the interesting thing about that is that there is a possibility that at some point in the game, Max would be able to Lysander and... He's done it! Computer Search gets Archie's ace in the hole. He even gets to get rid of Blastoise with the Computer Search. And now he's going to get the Blastoise out. Now we are rolling, ladies and gentlemen. So just like that, and that's what this Blastoise deck can do. Max is sitting there, he's had a couple of turns, he's got Nout, and then all of a sudden he goes Computer Search, boom, off we go. So yeah, the Articuno does 20 damage plus 40 for each heads you can hit off 3 coin flips. So something like a Bronzor, you would only need, I believe, 1 heads to get the KO on Bronzor, and you would take 2 prizes off that. So knocking out a little Bronzor would actually be able to get you the equivalent of an EX KO, which is pretty gosh darn nice. And we see 60 damage there from the Articuno, 1 head. Not perfect, but it does open up a possibility that with 2 heads and a muscle band, or 3 heads next turn, he's taking 3 prizes with the Articuno. Now, you've only got a 1 in 8 chance of hitting 3 out of 3 heads, but still, that ain't bad going. Now, the other thing that getting that Blastoise out does, it makes Giratina a phenomenal liability. Mewtwo's X-Ball, that is not a great Sycamore. Mewtwo's X-Ball does 20 damage times the amount of energy attached to both active Pokemon. If your opponent has got 4 energy attached, as Giratina will if he's attacking, that means you are adding 80 damage. That means Mewtwo needs 5 energy or 4 energy and a muscle band to take down the Giratina. And that's a lot easier than the 9 energy it would take, or say the 8 energy it would take to take down a Tyrantrum after it attacks. Giratina, not the attacker you want in this particular game, ladies and gentlemen. Not by any stretch. Now the question is, when it comes back to Max's turn, is Max going to be able to pull off a fantastical turn where he's able to attack with the Articuno and take 3 prizes? And this is one really annoying, it looks like we're going to get an Ultra Ball of 2 Metal Energy, which is very useful because you want them in the discard, and one would presume that Ryan here is going to go for a Bronzor. No, it looks like he might be saving a Metal Energy for next turn and getting rid of a Skyfield instead, or is he going back to the Metal Energy? Ryan, make up your mind. He just can't decide. Big decision. Now, the thing about Articuno is really annoying because it's a non-EX Pokemon and you want to be beating Blastoise by knocking out 3 EX Pokemon, going after the Jirachis and the Shaymins for easy prizes and the Caldeo for them big prizes. Here's the problem. Articuno is taking extra prizes. So Articuno is taking prizes sometimes like an EX, even on little Pokemon, but it's not giving up prizes like an EX. And it can force you into a 7-prize game where you have to KO Articuno and then 3 EXs and essentially take 7 prizes to win the game. And that you only get 1 prize for knocking it out. And I've played against Blastoise, and this has lost me games against Blastoise in the past. Because you don't want to take out the Articuno, because it's only giving you 1 prize, but you know if you don't take out the Articuno, it can allow your opponent to really jump ahead in the prize race in a very frustrating situation. So yeah, awkward situation, not ideal, but a nice advantage here for Max. And now it looks like he unfortunately missed. He didn't get it there. It looks like he got 2 heads to do 100, to do 160 in... no. What's he on? He's on 140, so we did 60. Okay, so we hit 1 heads again. So I looked away for 1 second and I missed the coin flip. So Max there has hit 2 out of 6 heads. If he had hit 3 out of 6, 50%, which you would expect, he would have got the KO and taken an extra prize, and that would have been wonderful. Articuno's got 120 HP, and right now Ryan has dodged a bullet. If Max had hit 1 extra heads out of the 6 flips, he would have done 180 to that Giratina and taken 3 prizes. As it is, he's done 160 and taken 0 prizes. That's huge. The good news is, Max plays 2 Articuno. Does he have a Lysander? No. Ooh! There's an interest. Oh! That's cheeky. He has just used Archie's Ace in the Hole to recover an Articuno. As a side note, you have to get a Pokemon from Archie's Ace in the Hole. It's not an optional thing. If there's a Pokemon in the discard, you got to do it. And it looks like he's going to go kind of aggro Articuno, which is unusual. Now, Articuno is flipping. We've already seen the downside of Articuno. Max hit 2 out of 6 heads. Statistics say you should hit 3 out of 6. If he hits 50% on the heads, he's 3 prizes up right now, and Ryan is shedding man tears. But that's not what's happened. Now, ideally here, Max wants a Lysander. If Max hits a Lysander, that Giratina has only got 40 HP left. So 1 heads, or with a muscle band, no heads, will get him a free prize KO with that Articuno. So you've got to think that that's what Max is thinking. You've got to think that Max is trying to plan for a Lysander free prize KO. And here's the thing. If he can do that, he can, with 2 out of 3 heads, get a 1-hit KO on the Jirachi for the final 3 prizes. There is a situation, not this turn, but there is a situation where next turn, Max KOs the Giratina for 3 prizes. The turn after, he KOs the Jirachi for 3 prizes, and that's game. Heck, what he could do here is just attach 1 more energy to the Mewtwo, at which point he could do 100 damage to the Giratina, and set himself up for an Articuno KO on the Giratina next turn. And to be honest, if I was Max, that's what I'd be planning right now. I would be content to do some damage to Giratina with Mewtwo, and then just set up for the Articuno next turn. Now, I would want free energy on the Mewtwo. Free energy on the Mewtwo here would do 140 damage. Wait, where's my maths going? No, 2 energy would be fine. 2 energy here does 120 damage, leaving Giratina on 60 HP left, meaning 1 out of 3 heads. Oh, Max using Ryan Skyfield against him there. So Mewtwo here is going to leave Giratina on 60 damage, which means 1 head from Articuno, and he's taking 3 prizes. Not only... Okay, I mean, he needs another end. Okay. I can see where he's going with this, but this is not the tact I would take. I would half kill the Giratina, and then you've got 2 almost dead Giratinas that you can KO with your 2 Articuno, and you can win the prize at the next 2 turns. Here's the problem. Now the Caldeo is going to go in the active. Now, it's a little bit brutal in terms of the discard, but if Ryan's got another double dragon energy here, he can actually attack with Tyrantrum and get the KO and knock all of those energy off. I think, if I remember correctly, we just saw Max drop 3 superior energy retrieval. Now, you can only play 4 of that card as any non-basic energy card. he could have a really difficult time, and he's got free energy on the Articuno. So if Ryan's got a double dragon energy here, now he can attack with Tyrantrum, and he would have to discard free energy, but you can't discard free, so he'd have to discard all 4 energy, but he'd get the KO on the Mewtwo. We know that Max has got to be running short of energy. He's used at least 3 superior energy retrieval, and he's got free energy on the Articuno, even with 3 heads and a muscle band. The Articuno only does 160, which isn't enough to get the KO. At which stage, that Tyrantrum can go back to the bench. So there is a possibility here that Ryan could pull off a big turn, discarding a lot of energy in the process, but really hampering the ability of Max to do very much in subsequent turns. He can try and essentially run him out of energy here. And he kind of needs to, because that Mewtwo's got 5 energy. He's getting to the stage where he can kill an awful lot of stuff. And let's not forget that half-dead Giratina and that Jirachi are sitting on the bench, kind of crossing their arms and hoping that they're not Lysandred into the active. Because if Max has got 2 Lysanders, that's basically game if he can keep attacking. And actually, now that Bronzor's down, he could even go after the Bronzor for 2 prizes with an Articuno. Now, after all of that, that one thing I've just said, it does rely on Ryan having another double dragon energy, and it doesn't appear that he does so. And that's a problem. Now, the other question for Max is going to be... Oh, he's got a Lysander in hand. Oh, and it's, well... Does he have a float stone, though? Because now we've just seen that Blastoise be dragged into the active as Ryan attaches an energy to Tyrantrum, gearing up for next turn. Oh, he's got a float stone, so the Caldeo can rush in and retreat. No, I'm not... See, I'm not a fan of this play. He's got a Lysander in. Okay, I'm more of a fan of this play. Yeah, okay. I was going to suggest using the Articuno to take down the Giratina for 3 prizes, but actually, that was pretty good there. What he was able to do was kill the Tyrantrum, getting rid of all the energy in the process, and that's basically game here. There's very little Ryan can do at this stage. It takes if you've got 2 Bronzong on the field, you can get Tyrantrum going in 1 turn. Double dragon and double ability. There's 1 Bronzong on the bench. The absolute maximum number of energy that can be attached by Ryan this turn is 3. To attach with Tyrantrum, he needs 4. We can see how thin his deck is getting, and it looks at this stage, ladies and gentlemen, like it is just a slow, inevitable crawl to the end of the game. Now, I should point out at this stage, that although these gentlemen are playing the match, Max has very kindly agreed to scoop to Ryan in this game. He's going to give him the win regardless. He was not coerced into it. He looked at the standings and he made a decision on his own. He's a nice person. Oh, and there comes a Lysander for game and he wins. I say he's a nice person. Remember that every time you give... And essentially, Max can't be in cut. Ryan was down paired and in a situation where if he wins the game, he definitely makes cut at 4-1. Now... Every time you scoop something, there's only a finite number of positions in cut, 4 in this particular tournament. So by Max scooping Ryan into cut, he's scooping somebody out of cut. Had I lost my final game, that would have been me. Now, as it happens, I won my final game and I cut at 3-1-1. Had I lost my final game and Max had won, there would have been 3 people at 4-1 or 5-0. And then a whole bunch of people on 3-2, including myself. And I would have been, and I know this for a fact because I saw the standings, I would have been the highest 3-2, and I would have cut. Now, as it happened, I drew my final game, and I managed to cut in 4th place. But if I had lost my final game, Max would have just scooped me out of cut. As it happened, Jack, the Vrizian Genesect player from round 4, he is the person that was scooped out of cut by Max, giving the win to Ryan there. So remember, ladies and gentlemen, scooping somebody into cut is a nice thing to do. It's also a very mean thing to do. So do bear that in mind. It could have been me. Don't worry about that. Anyway, the game has finished. So, as always, huge thank you to Max and to Ryan for agreeing to be recorded. Always nice when people take the time out to help us out. Thank you to the Sidden family and everyone at Xeon City Gym down in Truro in Cornwall for not only allowing me to record, but making it incredibly easy. I very much appreciate them allowing us to do so. And thank you to you guys for watching this. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. By now, I'm assuming you know how YouTube works. Have a lovely time, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to be back. I'm out of tournament games for a minute, but don't worry. There are good videos coming next week. It's going to happen. It's going to be wonderful. And there are more tournament games coming soon, so don't worry. Have a lovely time, ladies and gentlemen. I'll be back with more videos soon. Thank you very much for watching. Look after yourselves till next time. My name is Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.